I wonder if you can feel it. It's feeling like Christmas, isn't it? Yeah? Are you ready for Christmas? Anybody not ready for Christmas yet? Where are the kids? I know the kids are ready for Christmas. Where are the kids in the room? Woo-woo! Hey, yeah, kids are ready. Kids are excited for Christmas. Just a few hours from now, and you are going to be opening some Christmas presents. Are you excited about that? I know the moms in the room, they're excited to watch you open the Christmas presents. There's something about the joy on a kid's face when they open a present for Christmas. That's what moms get excited about. Us dads, we're just really excited to see what our kids got for Christmas and what we got them for Christmas. Like that moment when oh, that's what I got you, I did. There's some excitement that just kind of dwells and comes into this space during the Christmas season. And Christmas is an exciting time. And I hope the Christmas season lasts a long time for you. But that's the question I have. How long does Christmas last for you? Like for your family, in your household where you are, how long does Christmas last? For us, we actually take everything down on December 26th. Once the next day comes, I don't know if I'm a Scrooge or what, but the tree's got to come down, lights got to come down. I wrap baby Jesus in some bubble wrap, put him in a Rubbermaid, and he goes back into the garage until next Christmas. I like things just going back to normal, but some of you, that's not you, is it? Man, you're leaving your tree up for a while. I'm not just talking into the new year. I'm talking about you got a President's Day tree, and then a Valentine's Day tree, and then an Easter tree, a Memorial Day tree, 4th of July tree, because you just can't take the tree down. How many of you still have your lights up from last year? Anybody? Just went that route, you just never take it down. There's something exciting about Christmas where we just don't want it to go away. And I get it. There's something special about Christmas. And you want to extend that Christmas joy for as long as possible. Because for a moment in time on Christmas, it feels like all is right. Like for us in our family, it doesn't matter what's happening in the rest of the world. There's something special about gathering around that Christmas tree, and it's like the only thing that matters in the whole world is the people around that tree. And to see the kids, just smiles on their face, to see families snuggling up, seems like all is calm, all is bright. But the question I have is, what happens when the lights go away? When the lights go back in the box, the decorations go back in the box, the Christmas tree comes down, what happens to your Christmas joy then? What comes next for you? For most people, it's just going back to life as normal. We just go back to what's normal, and unfortunately that means back to a life of debt, and probably more debt now because we just made it through Christmas season, or maybe going back to normal as in a divided family, or a dull job, or back to doubts, maybe back to depression, maybe the darkness creeps in. And what I love about the Christmas story is that it teaches us that darkness does not have to be normal. That when the tree comes down, the joy doesn't have to go away. That there is a light that should not be extinguished, and his name is Jesus, and that's what the Christmas story is about. And so what I want to do is I just want to share the Christmas story with you. Now, in the New Testament, the Christmas story is told 3 times. The Gospel of Matthew tells the story of Jesus. The Gospel of Luke tells the story of Jesus. And then the Gospel of John tells the story of Jesus. Now, we typically focus on Matthew and Luke's story because they're the ones who give us all the details and all the nitty-gritty details of how Christmas happened, who was involved at Christmas, when it happened. That's where we get our nativity scene from. That's from Matthew and Luke's Gospel. But I love what John does. John takes a different approach to it, and that's the approach I want to read to you today. So if you've got your Bibles, open up to John chapter 1. I want to read the Christmas story from the perspective of the Apostle John. And he tells it a little bit different than Matthew and Luke. This is what John says and how he tells the Christmas story. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everybody. And this light shines in the darkness, and darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light, so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. Now, John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. The Christmas story as told by the Apostle John. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What in the world was that? That was not the Christmas story. That is not, what is this? Light? Darkness? A word becoming flesh? Who's John the Baptist? John the Baptist is in our nativity set. I know what you're thinking. You're like, where's Mary? Where's the manger? Where's the shepherds? Where's the angels descending from heaven, singing glory to God in the highest? Where's the Magi bringing their 3 gifts? Where's the camels? Where's the Christmas that I grew up with? What I love about John's gospel is that he takes a different approach to the Christmas story. Matthew and Luke, they give all the details. They tell the what happened, how it happened, who was there. And so John takes a different approach. He's not so much interested in telling the what happened at Christmas as much as he's interested in telling why did Christmas happen. I think that's an important question to answer. And that's the question I want to pose to you today. Why in the world did Christmas happen in the first place? Why did God come to this earth as a baby? Why did he come to a poor family? Why did he come to an obscure town in Bethlehem? Why did Christmas happen? John gives us 2 answers to that. Why did Christmas happen? The first answer he gives us is this. The reason Christmas happened is because we needed a light that lasts. We need a light that lasts. And I'm guessing most of you in this room would agree with that. We all need a hope, a light that lasts, because if we're honest, there's been a lot of people, a lot of things, a lot of organizations that make big promises to you and rarely keep them, do they? They rarely keep them. And so what do we learn how to do? We learn how to not get our hopes up. At least that's me. I'm someone who doesn't get my hopes up very often. I'm really hard to surprise. I'm the person at your Christmas party that just doesn't give a good reaction to getting Christmas presents. I always make grandmas feel bad. It's like, oh, thank you. And they're like, oh, you don't like it? No, I really do like it. Just thank you. I was just trying not to get my hopes up, and this is middle of the road. Love it. And I think the reason I don't get my hopes up is because of Christmas season. The Christmas season ruined me as a kid. And it was that mean parent, everybody's got that mean parent, who thinks it's gonna be hilarious to give you the biggest present under the tree and then make you wait 2 weeks to open it. Did this happen to you? It happened to me. It's like 2 weeks before Christmas, you see the biggest present under the tree and it's got your name on it. I remember seeing Nikomas on the biggest present and how excited I got about that. Waiting 2 weeks to open that present. Christmas Day finally comes. All the presents have been opened and there's one Christmas present left under the tree and it's that big one. And I open it up, I take the paper off and I open it up and what do I see inside? Another present. A little bit smaller this time, but that's okay. It's still big, so I open that one up. And what do I see? Another present in it. I open that one, I open the next one, I open the next one, and then I get down to the squishy present that's been wrapped, and you never want to get the squishy present that's been wrapped because it's clothes. Maybe this year was different though. I open it up, and it's fruit of the loom. A brand new pack of underwear. Hopes dashed. 2 weeks I had been waiting, and that's the present I got. And you know, I think a lot of us, we have these kinds of lights and these expectations. In the world, they try to give us big promises. They try to give us these big presents, and They try to get our hopes up, and it doesn't seem like that light lasts for long, does it? Inevitably, they flicker out. There are a lot of lights in this world that make promises that flicker out. I mean, how long have we been going through this pandemic COVID stuff now? And there's always these lights that come up like, maybe this is the time where it's finally gonna go away. And then Delta comes. Well, maybe we're there now. And Omicron comes and our hopes flicker out. And it's not just pandemics, it's politicians. Like, remember the last time you voted for that person, you're like, this one's gonna be different. This is changing the game. Everything's gonna change now. The promises they make, they're gonna keep them. And then a year down the road, those promises flicker out. Or maybe it's not politicians, maybe it's career. Remember spending all that money on your degree? Remember that? All that hope and all that excitement you had about the future and how you were gonna use that degree and make a difference in the world, and then you get into the world and that degree flickers out, but the bill doesn't. It remains. The passions flicker out. A lot of those things flicker out, and maybe it's not career, maybe for some of you it's a parent who has made a promise to you that they would be there. Or a spouse who made a vow to you that they would love you. And now this Christmas, you're going to be around a Christmas tree, and that parent won't be there, and that love from that spouse won't be there as well. And it seems like just another promise, another vow that was made to get our hopes up and our expectations up, just to watch it flicker out again. What I love about John's Christmas story is that he tells us that there's a light that will not flicker out. There's a hope that will not go away no matter how dark things get. And in that story, he said it this way. He said that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. He's saying that Jesus is a light that lasts, and that no matter how much darkness comes, no matter how much pain comes, no matter how much grief is around your Christmas tree this year, no matter how much conflict is in your family or conflict is in the world, that Jesus promises to be a light in your life, and he promises to shine, and he promises to be there. He promises to be steady, steadfast, and reliable. Why? Because we need a light that lasts. And John says Jesus is that person who fulfills that promise. Now, John does go on and say this. He says, God sent a man named John the Baptist to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. But then he goes on to make a caveat here. He says, but John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. You know why the Apostle John had to make that caveat about John the Baptist? He says, now, I need to tell you about John the Baptist. He's coming to tell you about the light, but don't look to him. He's not the light. John may be a good guy, but he's not the light. In this Christmas season, we need to understand that there are gonna be good people in our lives that flicker out as well. Good people are not the light. Jesus is the light. John the Baptist isn't the light. This church isn't the light. I am not the light. Your grandmother is not the light. There is one light that will never flicker out and never break their promise. And it's not John the Baptist. He just tells us about the light. If you're looking for the light, the only place you'll find it is the true light in Jesus. John goes on to say this. He says, the one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, he's the one that was coming into the world. He's the one that you find in the manger. If you want to see a light that lasts, look to the baby in a manger. I think we like the idea of Jesus being a light, but there's also a danger in light, isn't there? Here's what we know about light. We like this idea of Jesus being light, but we also know that light is revealing, isn't it? Light reveals stuff. And I'm not sure we like that part of the light. Because the problem with light is that, yes, light dispels darkness around us, and we want the darkness to go away, but light also reveals the darkness within us. It shines a light on really the ugly sides of us. And if I step into the light, what's that gonna reveal about me? We don't like things revealed about us, do we? In fact, I have an enemy, a sworn enemy, and I keep this enemy locked in my hallway closet. And you might have the same enemy locked in your hallway closet. It's the bathroom scale. Like, this season has not been good to me, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've had way too much fudge, way too much cookies, way too many scones, and I'm starting to feel my pants get a little bit smaller. In fact, I bought new pants, 2 sizes bigger, and they fit perfect, and I'm really sad about that. But I don't know how much I weigh. You know why? Because I keep that scale locked in the closet. And here's why. Because that scale says things about me. And they're true, all of it. It's all true. And so here's my thinking. If I can keep that scale locked in the closet, then I won't know how much I weigh. And neither will my wife. My wife won't know how much I weigh either. And if she doesn't know how much I weigh, you know what that means? I don't have to go on Whole30 again come January. That's one of my biggest fears. I don't want to do that again because I'm okay with the way that things are if I don't know about them. And I'm afraid that if I step on that scale, maybe the ugly part of me that I feel on the inside will be felt by others on the outside. And we do the same thing with Jesus. We take our faith and we lock it in the closet. We distance ourselves from the light of the world because we're afraid of what he's going to reveal about us. We stop praying. We stop reading our Bibles. We stop attending church because we're afraid that that light might spill out on me. How many of you, that's where you are today? And we're that way because we're afraid that, man, if I step on that scale or I step into that light, then what if I begin to see the ugly parts of me? Maybe even worse, what if other people see the shameful parts of me? Maybe worse than that, what if God sees the parts of me that I'm ashamed of? What if I find out in the light that I'm unlovable? What I love about John's telling of the Christmas story is he doesn't just talk about Jesus as the light that lasts. He also says this, that the reason Christmas happened is because we needed a love that lasts as well. He recognized that, a lot of people's love, they don't last. It's a very fragile love. And if you're going to step into the light and have the darkness dispelled around you, you also need to know that when you step into that light that you're still loved. And so John says that in the manger, we don't just have a light that lasts, we have a love that lasts as well. And he says it this way in verse 14 of that story. He says, the Word became human, or the Word became flesh, and he made his home among us. He was full of what? Unfailing love and faithfulness. When God came to earth, he was full of unfailing love. He was a love that lasts, which means that this word, this light that came to Bethlehem, that he put on flesh and dwelt among us, he came here not because we needed another holiday to celebrate. That's not why Jesus came here. It's like, let's add one more holiday to the calendar in December. No, the reason he comes is because we needed an unfailing love to lean on and to lean back on. So here's what that means, that if Jesus is the light, then he sees all the darkness in you, and he loves you anyway. And church, this is good news, that if Jesus is a light, then he sees all the darkness in you, even the stuff that you're trying to hide from him. He sees it, and he has this unfailing love and faithfulness that he offers you. We have this idea that, Jesus' love is only for the good people. But for me, I deserve condemnation. I know there are some of you who stepped into this building today thinking, you know what, I usually don't step into these kinds of settings. I know that these people are loved by God, but I know the stuff that I've done this year, and I'm just glad I haven't been struck by lightning yet. Like, all I deserve from God is the condemnation of God. But here's what you need to know. Jesus didn't come into this world to condemn you for the darkness in you. He came into this world to rescue you from the darkness in you, to save you from the mess that's in you. Just a few chapters later in the book of John, there's this famous passage that most of us know. It comes from John 3:16. But what I love about the passage is really the passage that comes next in verse 17. 3:16 says this, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." It says that God loves you, that he's enamored by you, that he gave his son for you. And he knows that some of your response is going to be, well, them, but not me, right, God? I am meant for your condemnation. Like, I am messed up. And that's why we have verse 17, which says this, God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. God didn't come here to condemn you. Christmas is not about this cosmic father who marches down the stairs to spank his disobedient children. That's not what Christmas is about. God didn't send his son Jesus here to condemn you. They weren't just up in heaven one day and God and Jesus are having a condemnation, watching you and all of your sin, and God leans over to Jesus and says, go get him. Go get him. I've had enough. You go down to Bethlehem and you teach them a thing or two. He didn't come here to condemn us. Like if God wanted to punish us, you know what he should have done? Just stayed away. He could have just stayed away and that would have been punishment enough. We don't need a cosmic God to come here and condemn us and punish us. We're doing a pretty good job of that ourselves. Like if that's what he wanted for us, he would have just stood back and like, you guys be you and fall into darkness. What we needed was a loving father to step down into our darkness and rescue us from it. We needed a loving father who promised to love us and then upheld that promise and refused to let it flicker out. What we needed and what Christmas is about is a God who came here in the flesh to be a light that lasts and to be a love that lasts. And that's why we celebrate Christmas. That's what John says. Why do we have Christmas? Because we needed a light that lasts and a love that lasts. And that's what we celebrate. And I'm in the celebration mood, and I don't know how you celebrate Christmas, but anybody use like a Christmas ham to celebrate Jesus' birthday? I don't know why we do that, to celebrate a Jewish son's birth with ham. Doesn't make sense to me, guys. But the way I think we should celebrate is birthday cake and candles. So Jesus' birthday is coming soon, so here's what I thought we could do. Just celebrate by singing happy birthday to Jesus. And I need all the kids in the room to lead the way, okay? Because you guys know the words to this. Somebody sing it to you, and now it's your turn to sing happy birthday to Jesus. Are you ready? Let's sing it together. Happy birthday to you. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a birthday party where you've had an older brother, a mean older brother, an evil older brother, who as soon as that song is done, he leans across the table and blows your candle out and takes your wish before you get to make one. But here's what I know about the Christmas season is that there is a darkness that is trying to blow out the light of Jesus in this world. There's a darkness that is trying to extinguish the light of Jesus in this world, but the Gospel of John says that the light has come into the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. It will never overcome it. But I'll tell you this, it'll try. It'll try. I remember giving my life to Jesus as a teenager in Fairfield, Illinois, the small, tiny little church, and there was this invitation, and I went forward, and I received Jesus Christ into my life, and I'd celebrated Christmas for years, but I didn't know who Jesus was. And when I found out who he was and I received him, it was like the Holy Spirit lit this fire inside of me. There was this ignition of a hope that could potentially last, a light that could potentially last, a love that could potentially last. And I'm gonna be honest, I needed a light and a love that would last. And I thought from that moment on, things would be rosy, everything would be grand in my life, everything would be wonderful, God would take care of me. But here's what I found out real fast. There's still a darkness in this world that's trying to extinguish the light of Jesus. As a Christian, I was still experiencing darkness. I remember a time when our family had lost our home and we didn't know where we were going to lay our head down. And I began to ask questions like, God, I thought you were a light that lasts, but now there's this darkness that comes in and blows the light out. And then God teaches me that he will care for me according to his riches and glory. I remember a time when my father made a promise to our family that he'd always be there and never leave us. And then he left us, and then he took his life. And then I'm like, God, what in the world? It feels like this darkness has come in and just blown out the light that you've lit in me. And then God comes along and shows me that I have a Father who will never leave me and never forsake me. And this flicker of light reflickers up. Even still to this day, there's times where just in the burden of being a father or a husband or a leader, this anxiety comes over me, and I'm just wondering, like, man, is there hope in these different situations? And Satan will want to come in and just blow out the light that God has lit, but then God comes back and says, my peace I give you. My peace I leave with you. You know, that's what I've discovered about the light of Jesus. It's not that all the darkness automatically disappears. It's that in Jesus you have a light that lasts and a love that lasts as well. You know, Satan, he tried to blow out the candle of Jesus right from the beginning. In the Christmas story, we read that right off the bat, the world was trying to extinguish that baby Jesus, but could never get a hold of him. And then he goes on and leaves this ministry where he goes loving unlovable people and proving that he has this unfailing love and this faithfulness to his children. And for some reason, the world wasn't into that, and they still tried to extinguish his light. To the point where it got to where they decided, you know what we'll do with that light? We'll completely turn it off. And so they march in the darkness into this Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus is praying to his Father. They capture Jesus. They nail him to a cross and lift him up for the world to see and say, what do you think about your light now? And on that cross, Jesus says, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Still displaying this light and still displaying this faithfulness and this unfailing love until finally this word that became flesh couldn't take it anymore, and then his light is blown out on the cross. And then Sunday comes. And we find out still that when the light comes into the darkness, darkness can never extinguish it. Never extinguish it. I love celebrating Christmas, but Christmas is only meaningful because of what happened 30-some years later. What happened in a wooden manger is good. We should celebrate that, but it doesn't compare to what happened on a wooden cross